chain passing by the coulee. And so white by spring in a river.
Each season offers a diversity of plants and wildlife, providing food, clothing, shelter, and medicine. But most significant is described in stories, like the one told by Colville tribal elder Tom Louis.
Itumpulaw, Isiw, Snachiw. That was my Indian name. My white given name is Tom Louis. We're known as Snatchit, the noisy water people, as they call us today, Snipe people. Right up to Kittle Falls. You have to find out how you can take care of them. All we have in this river is just water. The three sisters way down there at Salilo, they've got all this salmon. And the three sisters were seagull, kingfish, and snipe. That was the three sisters that held the salmon captive. And we need somebody to go down there and free them salmon. You have to be very careful. You have to have some good power. And the three sisters down there are killed. And finally he said, I'll go. We got them all the way up to Kittle Falls.
The massive Kettle Falls of the Columbia River, along with Little Falls on the Spokane River, become two of the most important fisheries for salmon, steelhead, and lamprey eel in this region, allowing the Colville and Spokane tribes to flourish in these ancestral homelands.
Grandpa used to go up to Little Falls and catch fish horseback. My mother said salmon was so big it would be dragging the ground.
It was the way of life of our people, from our understanding. It goes back.
In 1882, they were immigrants from Canada, and their family had been in Scotland a generation before that. Archie would write, I took up 160 acres of land. Of course, I am not a deed yet, but I am a Yankee all the same. Well, the Yankee chose land over by Grand Coulee, which can look quite lush and green in the spring, but severe later in the year. That endeavor failed. The McGregors ended up in the sheep business. You could work in the sheep business exchanging your labor for a third of the lamb crop that would be produced, and it was a place for people to make a start.
Sheep, cattle, fruit orchards, and other crops form the basis for farming along the river from the late 1800s. Farmers throughout the West prosper for a time, but arid conditions more typical to the region return. Congress and President Teddy Roosevelt fear that economic development in the arid West will languish with the crash of 1929 and then the Dust Bowl of the 1930s. The effects of the Great Depression uproot thousands. Newly elected President Franklin Delano Roosevelt forms the New Deal, designed to put Americans back to work. One of these massive public works projects is Grand Coulee Dam, designed to bring much-needed irrigation to arid farmlands. Grand Coulee will be built and operated by the Bureau of Reclamation. Many unemployed workers stream to Grand Coulee when they hear about this project.
People were pouring in from all over the country. We don't realize today what a real depression is like when 25% of the people are out of work and people are very saw that as an opportunity to put men to work.
In 36, as just a laborer at 50 cents an hour. Within about a year, I had garnered enough experience to become a cement finisher at $1.20 an hour. 6 of us lived in a tent. We had a little pot-belly stove in the middle of this tent. In the morning when we'd wake up, the water would be frozen in the water pail. At the height of construction, there were 10,000 people working up there. The dam employed pipe fitters, electricians, carpenters, steel fitters, you name it. It was required to build the project. For fun, we would come to Salt Lake once in a while where they had Saturday night dances. I went with a girl over there for 3 years. The job was good for me, really, good to me. All in all, it was a good experience.
Something like 14 towns were scattered around the Grand Coulee Dam area. During bad weather, the famous B Street in Grand Coulee was so bad that a man with horses stood by to pull cars that got stuck out of the mud.
The thousands of jobs that were created by the Grand Coulee Dam project would help bring the country out of the Great Depression.
Flows from its headwaters in British Columbia and draining into the Pacific Ocean is one of the Earth's most powerful river systems. Twice the height of Niagara Falls and built with enough concrete to wrap a sidewalk twice around the Earth's equator, when it's completed, Grand Coulee Dam will be considered among the 7 wonders of the modern world, alongside some of the most awe-inspiring constructed works, such as the Golden Gate Bridge, the Empire State Building, and the Panama Canal. Once the 550-foot structure is built, hydropower can be created. Water controlled by the dam rains down tubes called penstocks into rotating turbines. The sheer force of gravity allows the rushing water to turn the blades of the turbines, which in turn rotate a shaft and electromagnet called a rotor. This whirring rotor sits in a copper ring, causing the dynamic electrons in the copper to produce electricity, enough to power 2.3 million households. Truly a renewable resource, the water is released back into the river and can be...
presents... Hey, guys! That's more like it! We proudly present Grand Coulee Dam! It sure is grand! Hiya, folks! I'm Hi! Billy Beaver's the name. We have a great show ahead that will help explain how grand the Grand Coulee Dam is. But first, we're going to show you some of our favorite things about the dam. Because who knows more about dams than a beaver? Of course, we beavers don't make our dams out of concrete. We use sticks. Speaking of which, is here, and top there, and ta-da! A custom-made beaver dam? Whoops! Doesn't seem quite right. But do you know why Grand Coulee Dam is even here? It's here so everybody can see us doing our show. belt is used to grow food. The water also generates electricity. Ta-da! I was thinking of something maybe a little flashier. Come on, let's dance. All right. Woo-hoo. That's it. Yeah. We can also have fun with all that water. Like water skiing. Uh-oh. And, paddle boating. And swimming, too. There we go. There are all sorts of recreation uses with it. A wild walleye. Now, what was that we were saying? Oh, right. Grand Coulee Dam. It sure is grand. What? Oh, yeah. We've got to get going. The main show is about ready to start. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Around this beautiful and rugged landscape to the Columbia River below, we wonder, what is the story of this ever-changing river, flowing past us now and yet closely? We will see how we are all a part of this story, a story woven from many voices.
Grandmother, please tell me the story again.
The story of Grand Coulee. Of course I can tell you again. Now listen carefully.
Over time, some of the most spectacular natural forces in the world shaped the place we now call Grand Coulee. Lava flows built many layers of basalt, covering the inland northwest. Several ice ages come and go. With warming, a number of lakes form and burst through ice dams, which then reform with each cooling cycle. Then, about 12,000 years ago, the last of these major floods unleashes the 2,000 square mile Lake Missoula for the last time. A massive flow of water races down the Columbia River, shaping Grand Coulee as we see it today.
We would screen a rock, chain passing by the coulee, and it's so white. They spring in the riverbed.
Ancestors of the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation and the Spokane Tribe of Indians living along the Columbia River use many resources. Each season offers a diversity of plants and wildlife, providing food, clothing, shelter, and medicine. But most significant to the Columbia Basin cultures is the salmon. This source of food and spiritual sustenance is often described in stories, like the one told by Colville tribal elder Tom Louie.
That was my Indian name. My white given name was Tom Louie. We're known as the Snotchie State, the noisy water people, as they call us today, Snipe people. Right up to Kittle Falls. Kittle Falls was the gathering place for the people back when the animals were. The two-leggeds wasn't even heard of. Coyote, he was quite a trickster. He's the one that communicated with the Great Spirit. He would communicate with Coyote, and Coyote would come down and he would share what was going to happen. While Coyote was communicating with the Great Spirit, that one day, the Great Spirit said, there's going to be two-leggeds walking among you. So you're going to have to find out how you can take care of them. All we have in this river is just water. The three sisters way down there at Salilo, they've got all the salmon. And the three sisters were seagull, kingfish, and snipe. That was the three sisters that held the salmon captive. And we need somebody to go down there and free them salmon. You have to be very careful. You have to have some good power. And the three sisters down there will kill you. And Coyote, he said, I'll go. All the way up to Kettle Falls, we brought the salmon.
The massive Kettle Falls of the Columbia River, along with Little Falls on the Spokane River, become two of the most important fisheries for salmon, steelhead, and lamprey eel in this region, allowing the Colville and Spokane tribes to flourish in these ancestral homelands.
Grandpa used to go up to Little Falls and catch fish horseback. My mother said salmon was so big it would be dragging the ground.
It was the way of life of our people, from our understanding. It goes back to the teaching of our belief system.
Wow, Grandmother, I want to hear what happens next.
Very well. So this way of life went on for some time.
Then, contact with European explorers and missionaries begins to alter the human landscape. Settlers seeking a better way of life find plentiful land, yet many hardships lie ahead.
My two great-uncles were the first of four brothers who would come here in 1882. They were immigrants from Canada, and their family had been in Scotland a generation before that. Archie would write, I took up 160 acres of land. Of course, I am not a deed yet, but I am a Yankee all the same. Well, the Yankee chose land over by Grand Coulee, which can look quite lush and green in the spring, but severe later in the year. That endeavor failed. The McGregors ended up in the sheep business. You could work in the sheep business exchanging your labor for a third of the lamb crop that would be produced, and it was a place for people to make a start.
orchards and other crops formed the basis for farming along the river from the late 1800s. Farmers throughout the West prosper for a time, but arid conditions more typical to the region return. Congress and President Teddy Roosevelt fear that economic development in the arid West will languish without sustainable water supplies, and the Bureau of Reclamation is created in 1902. Reclamation's role becomes even more critical after the stock market crash of 1929 and then the Dust Bowl of the 1930s. The effects of the Great Depression uproot thousands. Newly elected President Franklin Delano Roosevelt forms the New Deal, designed to put Americans back to work. One of these massive public works projects is Grand Coulee Dam, designed to bring much-needed irrigation to arid farmlands. Grand Coulee will be built and operated by the Bureau of Reclamation. Many unemployed workers stream to Grand Coulee when they hear about this project.
People were pouring in from all over the country. We don't realize today what a real depression is like when 25% of the people are out of work and people are virtually starving. The Dust Bowl was on and people were coming out of the Midwest with virtually nothing but the clothes on their back. It was a desperate time, and Roosevelt saw that as an opportunity to put men to work.
I have just visited much of the work that the national government is doing to stop soil erosion, to save our forests, to prevent flood, to produce electric power for more general use, and to give people a chance to move from poor land to better land by irrigating thousands of acres that need only water to provide an opportunity to make a good living.
I went to work at Grand Coulee Dam in 1936 as just a laborer at 50 cents an hour. Within about a year, I had garnered enough experience to become a cement finisher at $1.20 an hour. 6 of us lived in a tent. We had a little pot-bellied stove in the middle of this tent. In the morning when we'd wake up, the water would be frozen in the water pail. At the height of construction, there were 10,000 people working up there. The dam employed pipe fitters, electricians, carpenters, steel fitters, you name it. It was required to build the project. For fun, we would come to Salt Lake once in a while where they had Saturday night dances. I went with a girl over there for 3 years. The job was good fun, really. Good too. All in all, it was a good experience.
Something like 14 towns were scattered around the Grand Coulee Dam area. During bad weather, the famous B Street in Grand Coulee was so bad that a man with horses stood by to pull cars that got stuck out of the mud.
The thousands of jobs that were created by the Grand Coulee Dam project would help bring the country out of the Great Depression.
Grand Coulee and Hoover and the other big projects like that were picked up by the radios. They were picked up by the newsreels in the movie theaters. They were just a tremendous morale booster for the American people. They were unsure about where America was going in the depths of the Great Depression. And they could see hope there on the screen every Saturday when they went to the matinee. It was giving hope to Americans that we could still do big, important things.
The tremendous Columbia River, flowing 1,200 miles from its headwaters in British Columbia and draining into the Pacific Ocean, one of the Earth's most powerful river systems. Twice the height of Niagara Falls, and built with enough concrete to wrap a sidewalk twice around the Earth's equator. When it's completed, Grand Coulee Dam will be considered among the 7 wonders of the modern world, alongside some of the most awe-inspiring constructed works, such as the Golden Gate Bridge, the Empire State Building, and the Panama Canal. 550-foot structure is built, hydropower can be created. Water controlled by the dam drains down tubes called penstocks into rotating turbines. The sheer force of gravity allows the rushing water to turn the blades of the turbines, which in turn rotate a shaft and electromagnet called a rotor. This whirring rotor sits in a copper ring, causing the dynamic electrons in the copper to produce electricity, enough to power 2.3 million households. Truly a renewable resource, the water is released back into the river and can be used again to create more hydropower at the 10 other dams downstream on the Columbia. Grand Coulee Dam, proof of human ingenuity.
Between 1939 and 1941, a gigantic reservoir begins to collect upriver. This will be called Lake Roosevelt. Power generated for farms and towns will grow the Northwestern economy and help to feed a nation. But as the promise of bounty for many on this land approaches, abundance is taken away from others. Salmon, as well as steelhead and lamprey, are prevented from swimming to the Kettle Falls or Little Falls fisheries in the Upper Columbia and Spokane rivers.
Salmon were our trading commodity and our major food supply. And so when they stopped the salmon from coming up past Coulee Dam into our fishing sites, it just disrupted our whole system.
Homes and livelihoods and 56,000 acres of land are inundated prior to the dam's completion.
And they were getting rid of everything along the shore, all the way up from Coulee Dam, clear up to Little Falls. They moved all the houses or tore them down. It was all covered. Just the way it was going to happen, I guess.
The Colville and Spokane tribes, mourning the loss of this source of vitality, natural balance, and great cultural significance, gather in 1939 at Kettle Falls in the first Ceremony of Tears.
A lot of controversy. Right up to the end of construction, there were people who didn't want it. Of course, as you know, when the war started, we really needed it.
Grand Coulee took the salmon, and my people's heart did break. With a
Oh no, grandmother! A war? Unfortunately, yes. And the new dam helped the country overcome it.
Even though the dam created hardship for many who lived here and drew criticism from all likes of American citizens, it was unexpectedly about to show its importance when the country entered World War II.
Yesterday, December 7, 1941, a date between life and death. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked.
There was a high demand almost instantly for the power
It was funneled into shipbuilding on the coast. It was funneled into aircraft building. It went into aluminum smelters, which were vital for the aircraft industry. And then a large percentage of the power went into the Hanford Reservation for the atomic bombs that were created toward the end of the war.
The Bonneville Power Administration, authorized in 1937, allows for the maintenance, transmission, and sale of power created at Grand Coulee and other federal dams in the Columbia River system. If not for Grand Coulee Dam, the Northwest would need 15 coal-fired plants or 6 nuclear plants to equal the hydropower that will be produced here. In 1950, President Harry Truman speaks at the dedication of Grand Coulee Dam. This visit strengthens his resolve to promote further development of the river, providing flood control at times of unpredictably high runoff, as well as enhancing water storage and hydropower.
This is a great occasion. We've come here to dedicate Grand Coulee Dam, one of the mightiest structures man has ever built. With this dam, man's ingenuity has dramatically transformed the energy of a mighty river into a great new source of national strength. New jobs, new industry, new opportunities have been created. Grand Coulee Dam, with its tremendous power and irrigation benefits, is an instrument of our democracy, forged to contribute to a better life for ourselves and our children.
The next challenge is to supply much-needed moisture to Washington farmland, averaging just 6 to 10 inches of rain per year. Progress on the Columbia Basin Project, the 1935 plan to irrigate huge swaths of the inland Northwest, resumes.
The first Columbia Basin irrigation water didn't get here until 1952. There's a big pumping plant on the upstream side of the dam that pumps the water up into Banks Reservoir. It's gravity all the way down to Pasco practically.
Just like an oasis now that used to be blow sand and sagebrush, and now it's the breadbasket of the state, if not the nation.
2/3 of the 1 million acres originally designated in the Columbia Basin Project are under irrigation. Farmers are able to raise a wide variety of crops for food and fiber. Only 2% of the water flow from the Columbia River is used for irrigation, and whatever is not absorbed into the crops or evaporated is recycled and returned to the river. While the harnessing of the mighty Columbia River has brought the benefits of hydropower and irrigation to the nation, the river still maintains her independence. In 1948, the city of Vanport, Oregon, is destroyed by a massive flood. Flooding, as a result of sometimes high seasonal runoff upstream, continues to be a serious concern.
My father reminded me about how he carried me on his shoulders in water that was up to his waist, if not higher. Our family lost everything.
In the early 1960s, flooding is addressed when the Columbia River Treaty with Canada is formed, resulting in increased flood control and the addition of new reservoirs. This also leads to the opportunity for reclamation to enlarge Grand Coulee Dam and an ability to provide even more hydropower to a growing population, making Grand Coulee Dam the largest hydro producer in the world. In 1980, the third power plant is completed, making the dam span nearly 1 mile long. Grand Coulee supplies power to the western grid in the world's longest direct current transmission. The Federal Columbia River Power System supplies electricity to the entire region at the cost of production in an environmentally sound and efficient way. Wind and solar development, habitat improvement for salmon, fish hatcheries, along with natural and cultural preservation, supplement hydropower production. Grand Coulee is truly the cornerstone of this vast, beneficial resource.
And I think it even did better than what they anticipated. I think we still have one of the cheapest electrical rates in the world here. Actually, it has worked out, I think, for the benefit of not only this area, but the whole country.
I've come up here with my family for 40 years, fishing, camping, and now my grandkids are joining us. It's a place we know we can always come back to reconnect with nature. We always see something new.
Because of Grand Coulee Dam, many new recreation areas were created. Lake Roosevelt National Recreation Area behind the dam, and Banks Lake, the 27-mile-long reservoir south of the dam, and their surrounding landscapes, which include hundreds of acres of habitat, now protecting many species of animals and plant life native to this area. The addition of resident fish in the lakes and the many opportunities for recreation, solitude, and learning make this a special year-round destination, attracting over 1 million visitors to the area every year.
The dams have created a different ecosystem than what was here, but the benefits of the dams have been great. I think one thing we have in common is that we want to protect the water, we want to protect the land.
One of the first things that we had to do was learn our history. Where did we come from? You better find out where we come from. How did that dam get there? What did that dam cause? When you understand that, then you understand where you have to go. Life has changed a whole lot. And when tribes can run their own reservation, take over their own future, there's a pride about that.
We need to come together to discuss the future of the river, respectful of cultures, of history, and yet provide good stewardship for the future.
Wow, Grandmother. I can't believe our family was a part of this story. I can't wait to tell my grandchildren someday.
Well, granddaughter, this isn't just our story. It belongs to all of us. It's a story woven from many voices.